I'd like to call the meeting to order. We invite the public to join the board and the administration for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. We just have a few announcements. We ask everyone to put their phones on silence or shut them off. Board meetings are broadcasted live over Comcast Channel 28 and Verizon Fios Channel 32, and are live streamed on our district website, as well as recorded for future broadcasting. The purpose of this special meeting is to adopt a final operating budget for the fiscal year 2021, 2022, and any other business that may become before the board tonight. We'll have public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board on the proposed final budget for the fiscal year of 2021-2022 being presented tonight for action is requested to complete a public comment card and submit it to the board secretary. If you are a member of a large group concerned about one issue, we ask that a spokesperson be designated to speak. We give everyone 3 minutes to speak. I do have one public comment. Mr. Indictor?
It's on? Oh, it's on. Okay.
Would you please state your name and address, please?
Yeah, my name's Scott Indictor, 2151 Betsy Ross Drive, Bensalem. It's good to be back here. Nice to see everybody's smiling faces. As you guys meet here to discuss the budget today, I just wanted to bring a matter to the attention of you guys and all of Bensalem. There is a state budget that's going to be voted on soon, and that state budget has a lot of wonderful provisions for public education. And a lot of things that'll really help Bensalem. So I want to encourage everybody, if they can, to call their Senator Tommy Tomlinson and Representative Casey Tomlinson. Let them know that you really want to support this education budget. 3 of the things that are in there that are really fantastic. The first is that the fair funding formula is being proposed to be applied to everything. Basically, the old funding formulas for public schools by the state were very unfair to lower income districts like Bensalem. They instituted a new formula, but only a portion of the funding is running through it. This proposal will have all of the funds running through the fair funding formula, basically the way it should be. So that's very important. 2, they're looking at increases in special education funding. For those people who don't know, Bensalem has an outsized share of special education costs compared to other districts. So very important to increase that funding, really, help out a district like ours. And the third, possibly a fourth, but the third is there's a loophole in the charter school funding laws that basically allow a cyber charter to get the same revenue, or the school district pays them the same as they do for their own brick and mortar operations. As most people know, costs like half to 2/3 as much to run a cyber charter school as it does to run a brick and mortar school. And so that loophole has been under debate for a long time. This has a chance to close that loophole, so it's a wonderful thing. And in addition, I couldn't get much information on it, but there is a special education loophole where charter schools get overpaid for special education needs. I think that's in there, but I haven't had enough opportunity to find out about it. I did call Tommy Tomlinson. I got his legislative director. He seems like he is very supportive of these means. I think they may be voting on it as early as next week or the weekend. So please make a call. These are wonderful things. They will really help out Ben Salem. And as you'll hear about our shortfalls in this budget today, please remember, Ben Salem needs it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no more public comments, so I'll close public comment. At this time, I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Steffi, our Business Director, for our final presentation of the budget.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. Next, first slide, please. First slide indicates that we've had 5 budget meetings to discuss, deliberate, all the things that have gone into the budget, the things that have been added, things that have been reduced. Starting back in December when the board passed the Act 1 resolution limiting the tax increase to our Act 1 limit. Then budget meeting number 1 in February, number 2 in March, number 3 in April, adoption of the proposed final where there was additional discussion, the Q&A on May 26th, and finally the 6th and final meeting on June 23rd where we will be adopting our final budget. The other reason I put all those different meetings that we've had a lot of discussion on this, and you're going to see some of the same information because after 6 different meetings, some of the information is redundant. So forgive me if some of the information you see is a repeat, but we've tried to just include some of the pertinent points for this final budget adoption. Financial history. You can see, for those of you who've been here for a number of years, that for 6 consecutive years, the district had been drawing on its fund balance. And for the last 2 years, we've reversed this. This board is to be commended. After 6 draws that drew down our fund balance from over $32 million down to a little over $14 million. For the last 2 years, we've increased our fund balance. And we're projecting to increase our fund balance for a 3rd consecutive year this year. It's resulted in a credit upgrade, and we anticipate that to continue to happen. Again, our fund balance increase over the last couple of years was $2.129 million, or 15% of our expenditures. Fund balance of a percentage of total expenditures has increased over 11% over the last 2 years. And again, our fiscal year 2021 projects to increase our fund balance for a 3rd consecutive year. Next slide, please. How much did our expenditures go up? Total expenditures in this final budget total $163,046,709 from last year, or current year, of $159,451,000. That's approximately a $3.6 million increase, or 2.25%. What are the major budget cost increases? Special education, charter school tuition, pension, and new positions. Next slide, please. Positions added to the proposed, or to the final budget. New teaching positions at the high school, new elementary special ed position. Next slide. Support positions include an HR specialist, supervisor of physical plant and transportation, social worker, purchasing specialist, supervisor of innovation and instructional technology, district-wide athletic director and MTSS coordinator, DEI position, bilingual secretary, bilingual aide. So you can see there's quite a few positions that are added to the final budget for 21-22. Ms. Fernandez?
Yeah, I see 2 things missing that I I believe, well, if they're not in the budget, I think they should be because we've had discussions about them. The first one is, it's 3 bilingual aides, not 1, 3. So are there 3 in and you just wrote 1?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. The other one is let me just make sure it's not here. Okay, the federal programs position, Dr. Lee, you had mentioned.
Oh, I'm sorry, that is in, there. Then that is in the final budget.
It's just not on the list.
It's not on the list, yeah.
Okay, so the federal programs, and then we had, our 2 elementary assistant principals had been temporary, but they're now being made permanent.
Yeah, that's
I
on-
understand it's not a dollar change, but it is, they are full-time positions being added,
Yeah.
correct?
What I did is, there were, if you recall back in the very first budget presentation, we had included in a number of those things, like the high school guidance counselor isn't listed here.
But
That-
at the last budget meeting, I specifically asked for this meeting if we could have a full list. So that's why I'm going through these. I do recall that, and that's what, forgive me, Mr. Steffi, that's what you said last time, and I
but
asked if we
it's
could have a
on
full
the
list.
I mean, it's on the handout, the cost out sheet that,
Where is that?
I mean, that was
believe-
email, that was,
Cost out sheet was emailed to you guys this week, last week, actually.
Oh, maybe I didn't see it, but I wanted it for the public.
okay.
And that's why I called you this afternoon to make sure. So we've got the 2, so I would like to, maybe we could just review it now, that would be okay. But the federal programs is just omitted, right?
Yeah, that
That's
is,
on.
that is on the, yes.
Okay, 3 bilingual IAs. The 2 APs are being made permanent positions as opposed to temporary. And,
And also moving them from 10 to 12 months.
okay, so that does involve a dollar change.
That's correct.
Okay. And there's a social worker here, which would be a general social worker, but there's also the high school guidance counselor, which we made a temporary hire and is also being made permanent.
And also movement of the assistant to the superintendent position as well. I mean, if you,
Right,
yeah.
okay. And that's
Those are
all
in.
the list, that's
Those
it?
are in the, yes.
Okay.
Okay. The next slide is how much did our revenues go up? Projected for 21-22 final budget is $158,772,993, up from $154,180,778, an increase of $4,592,000, or just under 3%. And as Mr. Indictor was stating earlier, there's no increase included in state aid in this final budget. The revenue projections are a worst-case scenario or a most conservative. So if any part of the governor's budget goes through, it's a better budget scenario than what is presented here, which from everything we're hearing from, there is going to be a substantial increase in state aid for Ben Salem Township School District. Next slide, does the budget include a tax increase? And as we stated previously, there is no tax increase included in this final budget. Sorry. And the last slide, budget unknowns. Again, no increase in state funding is included in this final budget. There's no change in the methodology for the calculation of our charter school costs. And I wanted to mention our charter school costs because we've been getting our numbers in for School Lane. School Lane's had their registration, and this is the first time in over 5 years that kindergarten enrollment for School Lane for Ben Salem Township is under 100. And we have already 37 students from School Lane coming back to Ben Salem Township School District. So it seems like our numbers have topped out and may even be coming down a little bit. So that's great news for our district and for our finances. So, yeah, that's great news. So that's our budget presentation for today. And if there's any questions, please ask them now.
Just one more time. I did see that the spreadsheet that was emailed last week, it also only has 1 bilingual aid.
I know, the three aides are in there. It just, the cost out didn't include the three.
All right, so are the numbers in the budget then?
Yes.
They weren't taken from here, they were done,
That's correct.
okay.
And can you tell us, for the governor's budget, what's anticipated for this increase?
Well, we don't anticipate the governor's budget to go through as he's proposed, but I think the governor's budget was about $16 million in additional funding for the district. I don't think there's any way possible that will come to fruition.
I agree with Mr. Steffi. How do you feel about that, Ms. Fickles? Never mind. No, but there's a range of options being discussed, reviewed, considered in Harrisburg. Some publicly, most not yet. I am in contact with both Senator and Representative Tomlinson related to those conversations and prospects and possibilities for Ben Salem. And there are many possibilities and opportunities. None of them bad for us. All of them better than we are currently.
Just, the IU had a presentation on the budget and on the revenues for Pennsylvania. They're up over $3.5 billion over what they projected, which is a substantial amount. And they have an additional $7 billion in COVID relief funds. So the state is flush with cash right now. They have over $10 billion extra over and above what they had anticipated. So it's looking very good for school districts to get a substantial increase in state aid this year.
Yeah, my current expectation is, and it's a range, anywhere between 350 million additional basic ed subsidy dollars for public education in the Commonwealth and 1.25 billion, which is the governor's number. So that's as tight as I can get us today. I apologize. But I promise I will share out with not only the board but the community when this becomes, whatever it is, becomes a reality for us.
I had one more question. In the positions added to the proposed final budget, there's the district-wide athletic director and MTSS coordinator, but on the Excel spreadsheet, it has a high school AP. Are they the same salary?
Right, yes.
They're interchangeable. I listed it as AP, but then it's really the athletic.
It's the exact same salary? Well, it's going out to bid. It may not be the same person, but it seems like, well, I guess that'll get posted when the position's posted, that the salary is. That may be a surprise.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know what? I don't have any questions, but I want to acknowledge that this, so far on the years of me sitting on this board, we pushed you guys really hard to give us more information this year, and it was better than the years before. So I thank you for making those updates, and I hope that they continue to update moving forward.
Is there any other questions?
This is just a pleasant question real quick. The incoming, what are our charter numbers? You said the kindergarten class is smaller overall because we have cyber and whatnot. What are our charter numbers?
The incoming kindergarten classes sits at 98. And
But overall, our charter numbers, whether it be cyber, whomever, are they up or down?
they're up slightly, but again, it's very early. So we have, I mean, at this point in time, we have more students that have returned from School Lane than other years. So we'll have more kids coming back. So at this point in time, we're much better off than in previous years comparatively.
Okay. I was thinking more about the cybers after COVID. So, just wondering
I'll be
if you
honest,
knew.
I didn't, I can get those numbers for you. I didn't look at those
Okay.
that closely.
I was just wondering. Thank you.
Is there any other questions? No, we're good? Okay. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Price to... she's passing it on. We've already discussed it. I'm on it, guys. I'm on it. Okay? We're going to ask Mr. Price to read the motion of resolution. It starts at 3.01.
So motion to approve resolution 3.01 to 3.08. $3.01, that the final operating budget reflecting revenues of $158,772,993 and expenditures in the amount of $163,046,709, with the difference between, that's what you guys want me to read, between the level of expenditures and the revenue being addressed by a drawdown of $4,273,716 from the fund balance be approved for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. The grant revenues and expenditures be approved pending receipts of awards estimated to a total of $8,014,621 for the fiscal year 2021 to 2022. That the committed fund balance, which stands at $16,671,193 as of June 30th, 2020, is anticipated to be $12,397,477 as of June 30th, 2021. That the millage rate for the real estate for the 2021-2022 fiscal year be set at 164.9508 mils, and that a discount of 2% be allowed on the payment of real estate tax within 60 days of date of bill, and that a penalty of 10% be added on payment made after 120 days. That the following taxes be levied. A, Real Estate Transfer Tax Act 511 at 1%. Occupational Privilege Tax, Section 3007 at $10. Mercantile Tax, Section 3013 at $25 per license. 1 mil on annual gross wholesale business and 1.5 mils on annual gross retail and personal service business. Business privilege tax, PL 1257 at $25 per license. 1 mil on annual gross wholesale business and 1.5 mils on annual gross retail and personal service business. Public outdoor parking tax, Section 3001 at 25 cents. Vending machine tax, PL 1257 at $80 each mechanical amusement device, $55 each jukebox, $15 each vending machine charged over 5 cents, $15 each vending machine charging under 5 cents, $15 on each service machine. That the Board of Directors shall continue its authorization on June 16th, 1976 to grant senior citizens tax assistance in accordance with the definitions and schedules set forth in the Board's resolution as amended. That the Board of School Directors shall continue its authorization of June 11th, 1975 to send all interim taxes, Act 110, for collections to the Office of the Township Treasurer throughout the 2020 to 2021 fiscal year for processing. That the homestead property owners be entitled to avail themselves of the real estate tax installment payment plan adopted by the Board of Directors on April 25th, 2007. The due dates for the established Installment payments shall be September 1st, October 16th, December 1st of the year of the tax levied. That business owners and all other non-homestead property owners be entitled to avail themselves of the real estate tax installment payments plan offered to the homestead property owners with the same due dates. This is in compliance with legislation of 2011, which mandates such a plan for small business owners. That the Board of School Directors approve the resolution that homestead and farmstead exclusion real estate tax assessments reductions are authorized for the school year beginning July 1st, 2019 under the provisions of the Homestead Property Exclusion Program Act, part of Act 50 of 1998, and the Taxpayer Relief Act, Act 1 of 2016.
So moved.
Any questions on the motion?
I do. This is probably not a typo, but I just want to double check on 3.06. It says throughout the 2020. Okay, so do we need to amend that? Okay.
Amendment of changing 2020 to 2021 to 2021 to 2022.
Yes.
Great.
Okay. Do we have to vote on the amendment?
No.
Okay.
No.
Not at this time. Not at this time.
It's okay. No public comment at this time.
I think you have to wait until the end. There's a second public comment, I think. Yes, yeah, there is, 5.01. And on the second one, you can comment on anything that came up during the meeting. Yes, 5.01, there is another second public comment.
Yes, you would have to fill out another public comment card, Mr. Indictor, and make your public comment at 5.01.
We're right in the middle of a vote, right?
Yeah.
All right, sir, please wait till public
You
comment.
can,
As far as, I don't have a question now to get back to it, but I don't have a question. I just want to, I know I mentioned to a few people that I personally have an issue if we're taking money out of a fund balance and not doing a tax increase, that can lead to issues. But considering we've had a very unique year and a lot of people still are not working or on their feet, I am going to go against that. I still don't like it, but it's a unique situation this year. So don't count on my good graces next year.
that's a really good point, Mrs. Nicholas, because when Mr. Steffi presented the budget, the numbers you put in talked about the increasing fund balance. So it was kind of easy to miss that we are running a deficit and we have to, we have to dip into fund balance this year, which is what Mrs. Nicholas is saying, and because we're not raising taxes. So that's important. I didn't, not suggesting you were trying to hide something, but it wasn't obvious from the presentation, and some of our community members don't pay attention to all of our meetings. So this is, I'm glad you mentioned that, Mrs. Nicholas. It's a 4.2 million draw from our savings to make this whole, to avoid raising taxes on this, would you say, difficult year? Mr. Steffi, yes.
Mr. Steffi, can you elaborate on
I'd like-
the
I'd like
fund
to
balance and
elaborate.
how it sometimes goes?
Well, there's two things. Number one, in your expenditures, we have contingency. Because school code doesn't permit a district to overexpend their budget, so we put a contingency aside that if an unexpected expenditure comes up, the school board can transfer from that contingency to address unanticipated expenditures. It's not targeted for anything. There's 600,000. So when you look at it, that $4.2 million draw is down to 3.6 million. And as we said at a number of the other presentations, this is a worst case scenario. One of the rules of accounting is conservatism. And what we typically do, we never spend 100% of our budget. So if we spend 99% of our budget, 1% of $163 million is $1.6 million. We typically get 100.5, 101% of our revenues. 1% of $160 million in revenues is another $1.6 million. So at the end of the day, you're looking at a very modest draw if those things happen like they have occurred in all of our other budgets. So I know it's a scary number, but when you factor in the contingency and when you factor in we don't spend 100% and we typically get a little bit more than what we budget, it's going to be a minimal draw is what we project, if that. It may even be balanced or a small increase.
But Mrs. Nichols, your philosophy is if you do that time after time after time, the hit is harder the second time than the next year.
So Mrs. Nicholas is still right.
Well, and if you look, our last two budgets.
Write that down, someone. Mrs. Nicholas
Yes,
wants to
Mrs.
hear
Nicholas
that.
is right. We should increase
Mrs.
taxes.
Nicholas was right.
But if
Don't
you
ruin
look
it,
at
Mr. Steffi.
If you look at our last two budgets, they showed a draw, and we actually had a surplus. Now, some of that is COVID-related, absolutely. But 2 years ago, we didn't have COVID, and we had a slight increase. And this past year, we had another increase. So, and we're looking at an increase this year, too.
And I do want to say thank you, because I know when I first came on the board, they were, had already been planning for the cliff to come. That's why our reserves were as high as they were. And I had to have all that explained to me. That's why I'm a little, I'm used to having that backup account. And when the cliff came, we didn't fall. We came very, very close. But so that's why I'm a little, uptight. I don't like spending money we don't have.
Yeah, if you just go back 16, 17 school year, the district drew $6.5 million in 1 year in fund balance in 16, 17. So, yeah, the board we've turned it around. So from drawing $6.5 million to adding to fund balance in just 4 to 5 years, I think is commendable. So.
But I do think we need to acknowledge that in order for us to do that, we put a lot more burden on our staff, all staff, not just teachers. So a special thank you should go out to them for, it really wasn't the board so much as it was a collective effort to make sure that things got done that needed to get done and kids got what they needed. So we should just acknowledge that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people remember 4 years ago where when we cut positions across teaching, administration, support staff. I mean, there are people out front picketing because we cut so many positions. I mean, I think everybody remembers that, but, and it required everybody, all employees, to pick up and, like you said, do a little bit more. So we're doing more with less, but it's getting better now, so.
And there's only so much picking up you can do before you're just done.
And that's why we're adding a lot of these positions.
Any other questions on the motion?
Any benefit to the seniors this year?
Yes,
Well,
later
there-
in the agenda, you'll see there's an increase into the senior rebate amounts.
Okay, great.
At this time, Mrs. Harder, I'm going to ask you to do a roll call vote for us, please.
Thank you. Ms. Woods.
Aye.
Mrs. Nicholas.
Aye.
Mrs. Ferrandez.
Aye.
Mr. Price.
Aye.
Mrs. Snyder.
Aye.
Mr. Cohen.
Aye.
Ms. Fingles.
Aye.
Ms. Benitez.
Aye.
And Mrs. Rivera.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Tax increase, that's great.
Well, we're going to move into public comment number 2. Is there any, did you fill out a card, Mr. Indictor?
No, it was the question about the fund balance going up or down.
Okay, okay.
All right, that's why I brought it up, because I had a feeling, because from the presentation, it looked like it was continuing to go up and there was no draw. So that's why I clarified it.
The draw you see is just based off the state form that we filled out. It's not the actual number, it's just the 2028 that we file with PDE, shows a draw, but in actuality, when we finish out the year, it's not going to be that draw.
You never know, though, right? John? Mr. Cohen, can you have a discussion with him?
It's for the action. Okay, I'm going to close public comment number 2. We'll move in executive session. That's for the next meeting. The board did meet in executive session last night. We discussed litigation matters and employment personnel matters. Upcoming board meetings: August 3rd, Instructional Affairs Committee at 6 p.m., August 5th, Charter School Committee at 6 p.m., August 10th, Personnel Committee at 6 p.m., August 10th, Policy Committee at 7 p.m., August 11th, Business Facilities and Technology Committee at 6 p.m., August 18th, Public Relations and Outreach Committee at 6:30, August 19th, Diversity and Inclusion Committee at 7, and August 25th, the regular action meeting at 7:30. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?